It's a great time for literature from Belgium and from the Netherlands at the moment. In fact, the Frankfurt Book Fair is honouring Flanders and the Netherlands this year because they've chosen them together as the guest of honour for the Frankfurt Book Fair in October, which is just fantastic. Now, as you know, if you follow what I've been doing for the last century, it feels like, I did, in fact, help organise a festival of Dutch language literature. It's called High Impact. And I have since loved working with Dutch writers in English. It's just been a joy because they're all so good. And in fact, we had a real problem, all the judges. I can't remember how many Dutch language writers we had to choose from. It was really, really hard. It seemed like the pile of Dutch writers was that high. And so we had to discard some. But hey, the two you've got tonight really are absolutely amazing. So you'll hear from our second Dutch language writer from Belgium, Peter Verhelst, next. But first of all, I'd like to welcome Jaap Robben from the Netherlands. I would say almost officially the best dressed writer, but I haven't seen the others yet. The shoes, I think the shoe competition is going to be, it's a Dutch shoe competition trade-off. We've got the blue here from Peter Verhelst, and we've got your absolutely. Are they real?
No. Yeah, the shoes are real, but the printing is not real.
So it's not real crocodile or snake or.
Not that I know.
Good. I'd feel a little.
He didn't live when I bought them.
Good. Anyway, it's great to see you again. We have met before, which is a joy. But when you actually launched this wonderful book, which is You Have Me to Love, with a seagull, in case you're wondering, on the front there. Now, I grew up in Cornwall. I grew up with seagulls. I didn't have a particularly happy time growing up with them, but I don't love them very much. But this book is really, really extraordinary again. Now, you are a child. You write children's books, maybe.
Not a child.
You're not a child. I got there quickly, didn't I? I managed to get in there quickly. You've written children's books most of your life, and this is your first adult novel.
Yep.
But nevertheless, you've written it in the voice of a child. So you're it's a half and half, a 50-50. But it is an adult novel, very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Before I started writing on this book, I wrote children's poetry, and this idea came up, and I didn't know what I should do with it because I thought, this is impossible. I can't write a children's book about this. And I never ended a story longer than 5 pages, so I thought, how is it possible for me to write a book and someone maybe wants to read it from the beginning to the end? And then I just started writing, and I thought, it doesn't mind who the reader will be, or it's a child or an adult. I just write it in the language I really wanted to write it in, and with the kind of the rhythm of the words. And I write very clear, short sentences, and so in that way it looks for children, but it is for adults. So people from 12 to 170 can read it.
Well, there are certain parts of this book which probably would not be great for children to read.
They are.
But
16 up.
Yeah, 16 up, yes. I think there should be definitely a sign on that saying 16 up. But the point about this book, which is in the voice of a child, it's a very profound story of loss and grief and relationships and so on, all on this little island, which is not a real island, I understand. It's somewhere between Norway and Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah? And have you got an island in mind where it takes place?
Yeah. No.
But you're not going to tell us?
Well, when I started writing, it had to do with 2 things that happened. One thing that happened in real, and one short story I saw in the newspaper, and that was about a boy who was swimming near Scheveningen at the Dutch coast with his father, and there were really heavy waves, and the undertow took him. So his father went after him, saved him, gave him to a man with a board, and he brought the boy back to the beach. And when they returned, they looked around, and the father was gone. And that was one of the things I started with. And when I started to write the book, I thought, then it should be in Scheveningen. But I thought, and everybody will say, no, you can't swim there, and there's a fish and chips house, so you have to write about that. And I thought that then it should be on an island. But I thought, then it's a typically Dutch island, and didn't want that. And I also wanted an island in a way as a character, so that he's also changing during the book, and he's getting, in a way, the island is getting more narrow to the end. And I wanted that the weather is really heavy, and that the animals and nature, that everything is really rough. And in a way, I looked at those characters also as animals, as what we in fact are, and how they behave and how they do, and that thin line between that. And then it was an island between Scotland and Norway, but in the book it's never mentioned where it exactly is.
You get a feel for it though. And the story is about this boy, it's Michael, who he starts off when he's 9 years old. Yeah. And this is when this incident with the father and losing his father happens. And he has lived all his life just with a few people around him. His mother and Dora, and his father Björk. And his father has been a huge influence on him all his life. He's taken his guiding principles from his father. And his mother's a kind of slightly erratic character. But when the father goes and the boy has witnessed and feels guilty for the fact that his father has drowned, he comes back to the house, and then the rest of the story is really about the relationship with him and his mother. You go very, very deeply into this relationship, and we follow the story of the boy and the mother from the age of 9, when he's 9, to when he's about 15 or 16. Yeah. So, I mean, he grows, he becomes a teenager, but he still only has these few people around him. So he has a really tough life, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how did you come up with this extraordinary character?
I was really interested what will happen when you don't have a social context. So we are all used, especially when we're a child, and I went playing somewhere, and then I saw, that his parents do this and that father always plays football with us, and that father is always reading the newspaper and makes really strange jokes. And then I came home and I compared it to my own parents and how we do the things, and in a way that, because of that, I could create myself as an own independent person, separate from my own parents. But when you're living in a place where there's no social context, then just your mother, a neighbor, and 2 dead persons, because there's another woman who lived on the island and died, so it's a book full of dead persons. Then you don't really have a social context. So what the other does to you, you have to feel it completely out of yourself. And I always compare it when I point at you, and I would say, is it okay when I point at you? You would say, yeah, it's okay. When I come, do you mind a little closer? No, it's okay. And I get more and more closer and more closer. And in the end, I'm almost near to your eye. But when I do it in really small steps, you will always say, no, you can get a little closer, but it doesn't really feel very well, but you can even get more closer. And that's what inspired me. That what happened when the steps are so extremely small that you do not really know something changed. And the person doing it also does not really know that she's doing it.
And that's the mother, of course.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the mother who you start off just thinking she's a bit odd. He's seeing his mother, and obviously he has the usual problems of boys with mothers. But then it becomes very strange and very freaky, because she has lost her husband, and she wants her son basically to replace her husband. And this takes on very serious connotations. I won't tell you more because it is a very, very important part of the novel. But I just wonder what your own mother felt about reading this book. Because I know you have parents, and I just wonder what your mum, what she felt. Because it's your first adult novel. I mean, she was, I imagine, reading your children's books, delighted, great, Yeah. And then you dare to write an adult novel.
About the mother, yeah.
About a mother.
A lot of people ask that, and while I was writing, and even while she was reading it, I did not really mention that.
You didn't warn her?
No, I told her where it was about, and once in a while when I was at my parents' place, I we were sitting on the couch and I put up my arm like that, and then she asked, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's investigation for my book." Inspiration. But
You don't normally hug your mother.
yeah, we hug, but when I do it like really,
You were seeing whether it was possible. Yeah.
yeah, if it would fit.
Yes. Okay.
She's small, but
You didn't try out any of the other things.
no.
No. But how did she feel about the unmentionable bits? We're not going to talk about.
We do not really talk about that.
Right.
So,
Okay.
she said she liked it and she gave it as a present to some friends. And we do not really talk about that kind of intimate thing. And she can see the difference between the mother in the book and herself, I think.
Let's talk about seagulls then.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel even more uncomfortable.
The brother is a seagull.
Yeah. No, the seagull is. This is again. It's linked very much with the father, but the seagull is a presence throughout the book as well, and it is about. It's about this baby gull that Michael finds in this house of the dead woman Augusta.
Yeah.
And he tries to nourish and bring up this poor little broken gull. And I suppose that's him in the end. He's trying to, because the gull has been pecked by the mother. It's not such an obvious metaphor when you read it, I can tell you. But it's, I mean, I don't like seagulls at all.
No.
And I do, it didn't put me off the book. But you did choose to make them quite central to this. Is this a personal thing about seagulls?
No, it came up like a character, because in a lot of when there are troubles in families, then there goes an organization to that family and they check everything. I don't know how you call them in England, like a family affair. Social services.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Works
right.
or
Yeah.
social. And then they can, when something is wrong with an animal in a family, then there's always more. When a dog is treated bad, then mostly the children are treated bad, and that's because of the parents treating the children bad. And I needed a character in the book for Michael to go to project his love and his feelings, but also his anger and his fear, and something that he's got for his own. Because his mother is taking his room, and she says, "We can change rooms because you're getting too tall, so you are going to sleep in my bed. I'm going to take your smaller room, and here are some new clothes." And he's losing everything that's his own. There's not really a place for himself. And after a while, his mother mistakes in the room at night when she goes to the toilet and peeing and going back, and then she walks into the room, and so he loses all his private space. And then there's the house on the other side of the island, and he loves to go there. And there's a room, and he got a lot of memories there, being there with his father, and he can kind of create his own fantasy. And that's when the seagull.
And then of course, and she complains that he loves this seagull more than he loves her. But this is a beautiful, beautiful poetic book. It is like a book of poetry. I mean, there's not a wasted word here at all. And I hope you do us the honour of reading a little bit from this book too. The gulls, by the way, are called sky sailors. That's the wonderful phrase that his father gave to seagulls. So I like them much better when they're called sky sailors. So Jaap Robben is going to read from this wonderful book, You Have Me to Love, and it's published by World Editions, and it's been translated by David Doherty.
Yeah. I'm going to read a part of the second chapter. In the first chapter, Michael comes home. He doesn't really know what happened. His mother gives soup and he cannot really eat it. And after a while, he tells that something happened with his dad, but he does not really understand it. And they go to the beach to look after his father. The red light of the buoy appeared in the distant dusk. We scrambled down to the path to the beach, curled like a half moon around the cove. I kept trying to take hold of Mom's hand, but she was walking too fast. Dad's sunglasses, his towel and our flip-flops lay waiting on the sand, but not where we'd left them. I felt a surge of relief. Dad must have climbed out of the water and moved our things further from the breaking waves. Seconds later, my legs turned weak and wobbly again as I realized the tide had gone out. Mom shoved the torch into my hands and turned over the things on the sand, as if it might be hiding under them. "Birk!" she shouted over the water. "Where are you?" When no answer came, she turned to me. I accidentally shone the light in her face. "Where did you see him last?" I pointed the torch at the rocks. "There!" I was close to tears. "Are you sure?" She didn't see me. She was staring out to sea again. "Birk!" she shouted. "Birk!" Unbroken silence. Not even the girls were squawking. As soon as Mom started walking, I followed her with the torch so she could see where she was putting her feet. Without hesitation, her shoes walked into the sea. The water was soon up to her knees. She seemed to be in shock as she took in all that dark water, tugging at her shoes, growing wider with every step. I tried to shine the torch in the direction she was looking. Any second now, Dad would surface, coughing and choking, and here she was, ready to grab hold of him and haul him up onto the beach. Any second now, he would emerge from the water. He had to, especially now that Mom was here. We would see his head above the waves, like a football floating towards us. Look over there," I would shout, jumping onto Mom's back and catching him in the torchlight. We would wade further into the sea, put his arms around our shoulders the way they do in films, help him ashore, and after that, he would probably belt me one across the face, but I wouldn't care. At least he'd be back. "Tell me." Mom gripped my chin between her thumb and forefinger. "Tell me what happened here." He was swimming, I think. That's what it looked like, and all of a sudden he was underwater and further away. "And what did you do?" I fell silent. "Why didn't you tell me right away?" "But I did tell you." She snatched the torch from my hands, and we rounded the cove till we reached the rocks. We balanced on the boulders and tore open our hands on the barnacles. Normally, she'd be begging me to be careful up here, but now she kept climbing on ahead and calling out his name. Suddenly, I got sight of something in the small inlet. A dark object was floating in the water a few feet below me, thumping and splashing. I wanted to jump, but I wasn't brave enough. I shouted to Mom a few yards up ahead. "I found something." Thank you.